Give it a shot.
To let people hop back on.
Talk to the people.
Well, they don't know the link. Thusly, there's no one to speak to. Oh, wow. How did... I guess some people got notifications.
Yeah, do you know how to turn this YouTube thing? You know why we want them to subscribe?
So they get the
So they get
the bell turns into a 1. I've seen the... I know what notifications look like. Sort of.
All right.
Is it up?
Yeah.
On the Twitter.
How do we sound, guys?
It's let me message Joe.
How do we sound? Do we sound good?
Did you tweet it?
I did not. Just a second, gentlemen and ladies. Are you about to?
No, it's all you because since the credentials are different. So we sound like normal people now? Good. Thanks, Pat. Well, normal is relative, obviously, but you know what I mean.
All right, so we're going to have to start again. Sorry for anyone that already heard us do this.
We're going to do it verbatim, the
Yeah.
exact word for word. We've memorized it.
So just bear with us. All right.
Did you tweet it?
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell Joe.
Okay. What's up, Atlanta? This is the MOTS Podcast brought to you by Dirty South Soccer in the palatial 680 The Fan Studios. And I am sure that many of you are hating hearing my voice right now. I am Eric Quintana, and next to me, the intelligence behind the podcast, Mr. Josh Bagriansky. And Josh, I've learned some things this weekend.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself intelligent. I just think you made me look smart is all.
More intelligent than me.
With your hot takes.
Let's put it that way. I've learned some things. One, the dread god is alive and well and very, very real, and attacked me personally on Thursday.
Well, it's your fault, so.
As well as Atlanta United, and as well as every Atlanta United fan. But believe me, I was like Kelly Francis, crawled up in the fetal position as 3 goals are getting knocked in by Herediano. And
well, she was just upset about the result. You were curled up because you knew you were personally responsible.
I got a number of tweets.
For those that missed last week, Eric was extremely, extremely confident going into this match, and we told him if it doesn't go the way we hope, it's on you, man.
I did admit that if it didn't go the way I wanted to go, or that I thought it would go, that the podcast was going to sound really, really bad, and in turn, I sound really, really bad. Second thing I learned is talent does not trump mid-season form, as we learned. I think the other thing we've learned is that. CONCACAF, and not that I learned this, I knew it all along. I just didn't assume, or I didn't think that the CONCACAF nature of CCL was going to get a team that, for the most part, has played in this kind of environment before, whether internationally, whether with their club teams in Argentina. Sure, Bello might be the one, and you might have seen why that experience might have been needed on that left side. But he might have been one kid that, or the one that hasn't really seen much of this kind of atmosphere, this kind of environment, this kind of physicality, this kind of, refereeing. For the most part, everyone else is kind of dealt. Maybe the other one is Gressel, if you really want to throw it out there. But for the most part, everyone else is kind of dealt. You can bring up
names, Eric, but again, you are responsible for this.
Just me.
And so we can talk about George Bello, and we'll talk about some actual substance later. But just remember, it's Eric's fault, and you're getting destroyed on Twitter. My favorite part about this was before we went on the air, we were talking about how I was putting on there, blame Eric, and I didn't think a lot of people would get it, but clearly the masses knew that you are the Atlanta United jinx and you are to blame, and that's why you took such abuse on the Twitter. So well done, everybody, for knowing who was responsible for this result. We're going to talk a little bit about the game, I guess, and preview the next one, but it's important to realize. It's important to realize. Do we have to?
Do we have to? Because at this point, I don't feel confident in anything I'm about to say. I'll put it that way.
Well, we'll see. Well, why don't we start with something we can.
You know what? Do you just want to lead the show from now on? I'll just sit in the back and just hide in the corner and interject when I feel.
We might have some issues with our audio quality. If I'm in charge of anything technical. But I guess one thing, since we've already once again prefaced that we don't know anything when it comes to CCL, why don't we start with Miguel Almiron with Newcastle, and then we
something happy.
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah, something happy.
Did you watch the game, the first game against?
Yeah, I didn't get this. I watched the first half today, and then I watched the match over the weekend as well. And it's Joe Patrick, managing editor of Dirty South Soccer, mentioned this to us when we were kind of talking about it in our writers' room. That when he watches Miggy, he feels like a proud dad now. He's like, "Come on, run down the pitch." And
in no world did I ever expect to be rooting for Newcastle, but with Miggy on the field, I can't help but just want him to do well. I want him to score. Oh my gosh, had he scored off that chip in his first start,
hit the bar. Yeah,
holy moly.
Yeah.
That would have been. I mean, it would have blown. Well, I don't think there's not a roof over there in Newcastle.
No. But the team has looked better since these last two matches. They've won both, and we've talked all throughout the whole Miggy saga about how Newcastle, it might not be the best for him to go to a team that's in the middle of a relegation scrap, but it's starting to look like they're going to pull themselves up the table a little bit and be just fine. And a big part of that is definitely, I think, the introduction of Miguel Almiron, who I think fits really well in that system that Rafa Benitez wants to play. And also, Eric, this is one thing we mentioned before we went on the air tonight, is that one of the things we're seeing at Miguel Almiron's game as a higher level is you're probably not going to get as many goals from him as you did at MLS level with better defending, and he's not the most clinical finisher. So that's the one thing I think we've seen that's kind of, he's still creating a lot for others, but I think we're seeing that maybe he's not going to be a 15, even 10 goals a season type of guy in the Premiership. It's not a knock on him, but that's the one thing that I've seen from his game that maybe hasn't transferred, is that since he's not super clinical, he's not going to get as many chances against better defenders in the Prem. And that's the one part of his game that maybe won't translate. But other than that, he's been fantastic. He's transformed the way the team plays. And I think he's been a big catalyst of the good form that Newcastle have experienced over the last few weeks.
Oh, it's certainly a spark of energy coming from coming straight from Almiron into the rest of the team. You can see them playing better. You can see them moving up the ball up the field a lot better. He's introduced a tenacity, a sense of, I don't want to say urgency, but an attacking presence that Newcastle really didn't have before. And it's you can see it when he comes off the field. You can see how happy the fans are to have a guy like Almiron on their team, someone that they can root for, someone they can. I mean, aside from the talent alone, but the fact that he's so personable, he's a guy that you want to root for. He's
definitely,
again, like Joe Patrick said, the proud papa. You want him to do well, yeah.
And he's a guy like his attitude and his personality and the way he plays, it's infectious. I mean, one of the things that Atlanta United missed, I thought, most against Herediano without Miguel Almiron wasn't just the attacking quality, it was also his ability to work back in defense and his work rate and the way he drives a team forward and can put a team on his back. And there are guys that can do that this season, but that was the big thing I think the team was missing, was they didn't have a guy like Miggy to do both the attacking work but also the dirty work defensively and in the midfield. And he's gone and done that for Newcastle, and it's transformed them into a side that was seen as relatively soft just a month ago into a team that I think might feel they can start to make a run towards mid-table over these next few months as opposed to dropping down into the relegation scrap. And again, I think so much of that has to do with Miguel Almiron, not just the way he plays, but like you said, Eric, the way he approaches the matches and training, that interacts with fans and media, that changes the entire atmosphere around the club. And that's basically what's happened at Newcastle over the last few weeks.
Rondon and Paris have to really, I mean, I don't think it's going to take very long, but as soon as they all kind of build the chemistry that they need to build in that final third, this team's going to be something to face. I don't know that they're going to, beat the best of the top six in the table, but on a regular basis, but they're definitely in the mix to be.
I think they could definitely challenge for a mid-table, and we'll see if they continue to spend money and build. And
I think they're maybe one piece away. I don't want to talk crap about Rondon because I have not seen enough of them to make a fully make any kind of judgment. But I think that anyone that can pair with Almiron well enough is going to be the piece that Newcastle need to really kind of take them over the top. Again, I can't say that for sure whether Rondon is that guy or not, but time will tell. We'll see how the chemistry builds, how they kind of get along. So far, this looks great. Although I think Almiron's only been really involved with one goal in the last 2 matches.
Directly involved with one, yeah.
And you've seen how many opportunities they've had. I think that's what I've enjoyed seeing the most is how much it seems like the players are playing with a lot more confidence, a lot more joy, just in general. Yeah.
Well, you play with a guy, Miguel Almiron, who wears a smile on his face when he plays. It's going to make you play that way.
He draws the attention of other players. I don't know how long it's going to last. I would say at the very least the rest of this season. But if you're Newcastle, take advantage of the fact that he's drawing so much attention based off the hype that's surrounding him right now. Maybe the surprising hype, if you would, especially to those who maybe haven't followed him with Atlanta United. The attention he's drawing is going to open up so much space for other guys in the final third. For sure.
And he already, I mean, like you said, Eric, he hasn't been involved with a bunch of goals, but I think it was 5 or 6 chances he created over the weekend. Yeah. So, I mean, he's making a big difference there in every possible way imaginable, from the results to just the atmosphere around the club. Yeah. And that it's nice to see someone else fall in love with Miguel Almiron the way that we did. And just, what else can you say? It's cool to see him having success, and hopefully it continues.
Watching him today, I think at some point you're going to see, if it continues to kind of create these chances, kind of fail to finish, which is in the last 2 matches, and it's only 2 matches, and he's been there for a month, maybe not even. I could see where that might be one of the complaints that Newcastle fans have towards Almiron, is that he isn't doing a good job finishing right now. Again, just 2 games. I wouldn't worry about it if I were a Newcastle fan. Yeah. The chances alone he's creating by himself, turning up the field and going and zipping. I think a lot of people are surprised. A lot of defenders in these last 2 matches are incredibly surprised at how fast he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they expected that. Or how strong he is.
That's why we see with a red card
exactly.
that he basically draws. I'm a little tired of one thing, though, is people saying that particularly those the English quote-unquote pundits, that he needs to adapt to the physicality of the Premier League, which, of course, is one of their favorite things they love to say. But, it's so physical here, these foreign players come, they can't handle the physicality, which is ridiculous, but especially because MLS is similar to the Premier League in that it's very physical. It's the referees have a little more leniency.
Physical, I would say.
He's been getting kicked for the last 2 years. I mean, how do these, clearly I haven't been watching MLS, and that's okay. They're Premier League pundits, but Miguel Almiron has been taking a physical beating in MLS how many times do we see him get hacked down? I mean, it feels like multiple times a match. And he never missed time due to a tackle. The time that he missed, which wasn't much, but it was hamstring, it was muscular problems. So clearly physicality and holding up to a league where defenders and midfielders get extra stuck in is not a problem for him.
Give us your thoughts on the first leg to Atlanta's CCL match. We're going to go ahead and dive into that one. Obviously disappointing, 3-1 loss. I am most disappointed of all. I can't tell you how disappointed I am. I won't, in my defense, not that I deserve one, but in my defense, I did say they could lose this game.
Oh, good for you.
They shouldn't.
Good for you, Eric.
But they could.
What a genius.
And lose they did. 3-1 to Herediano, and in fantastic fashion, if you ask me. I honestly have seen highlights, and I've completely forgotten the times of goal. I know just about when the goals are scored. Mm-hmm. First one was 7th minute.
Yeah.
Just about.
Early.
And the one thing that surprised me with that first goal is how much room LGP has to settle for the opportunity to settle the ball, not need to pass it back to Guzan, and then Herediano pounces all over it. Tactically, you gotta love, if you're at Herediano, you gotta love what you saw out of your team against an opponent like Atlanta United, going after him, pressing high, and look, out of nothing, creating your first goal. Sure, it was a massive mistake from LGP. And look, initially I wanted to put some of the blame on Bello, but then I watched the replay and I was like, oh my gosh, look how much room LGP has to just settle the ball. There's no one around him.
It was a big,
if nothing else, just pass it right back or head it right back to Bello so he can clear it out.
It was a big error. And generally with the match, I mean, if we paint with kind of a broader brush to start, I think the big surprise was, aside from the scoreline, Herediano took the match to Atlanta United.
Oh, yeah.
They were the aggressive team. They were the team, they did what we're used to Atlanta doing to other teams. I don't really remember. I mean, I'm sure there are a couple matches from 2017, obviously the Houston match last year to open, but it's very rare that you see Atlanta United with the personnel that they have just simply unable to control the match the way that they wanted. And Herediano gained confidence. And like I said, they became the more attacking side, where if you would just kind of plop down on earth, you didn't know anything about these two teams, you would have thought they were the favorites. And I mean, I was kind of with you, Eric, in that I wasn't shocked that Atlanta United lost.
Oh, I was shocked.
You were shocked.
Yeah,
well, you kind of tried to – actually, you were just defending yourself poorly is all it was. But what surprised me was the way that they were beaten. And it was kind of the perfect storm. I get it. You're going to a unique atmosphere without Miguel Almiron for the first time, trying to integrate PT Martinez and Barco in. You're playing a new system, new manager against a team in midseason. So to be fair, I think it was the perfect storm of kind of obstacles that created this. But still, I mean, you wouldn't expect a Costa Rican side that's not even the biggest team in Costa Rica, not even the side with the most resources,
struggling in their own domestic league.
The
whole thing was shocking to me.
I agree.
I think the biggest thing I underestimated is how valuable Almiron was to this team. Not only in what he could do in the final third, but the transition
was huge. Yeah,
transition from the defensive third to the final third, to the attacking third.
Mm-hmm.
You just didn't see much of that. You saw it a little bit. Sure, Pity and Barco had a moment where Pity Meg's a dude and they get up the field, but other than that, it was a lot of let's get the ball as far as we can out of our defensive third and try to recover. You didn't have a lot of cohesion in the final third. I thought for the most part, you had three guys that were trying to kind of invade their own spaces, and they didn't really know how best to work off each other.
Yeah.
Miguel didn't know what to do when Pity kind of cut inside. And
Barco didn't know what to do.
Either one.
Yeah.
Barca and Pity didn't really know. Pity had a
You said Miguel, so I just – yeah.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Pity didn't have had a much better game than Barco, but it's like they didn't really know how to work with Joseph. Joseph was waiting for some kind of pass, some kind of chip over the top, where Pity, I think, was waiting for a run or an opening to shoot. I think Barco the same way. Barco, I felt like looked exactly like 2017 Barco or 2018 Barco.
Yeah,
that there was almost no difference in what we've seen all of last
flashes,
year.
But consistently not what you wanted.
Just didn't know what to do as soon as you ran into traffic.
But and of course, I'm always the Barco defender. But I thought his performance, while it did look frighteningly like last season in terms of the inconsistency, I think everybody had a similar performance to him in terms of just not sharp, not completely aware of how to play with their teammates, how to adjust to a new system. So hopefully it was that and not just that he hasn't made any strides. And I think, you bring up PT and Barco and Joseph. One thing you do notice if you go back and watch the match is Atlanta United did break into dangerous positions with those two or three on a lot of occasions. They just weren't able, especially in the first half, to create the opportunities they wanted. And I just think that's a lack of cohesion and playing in a new system. But you brought up Joseph Martinez kind of wanting over the top balls.
I really didn't know what he wanted.
One thing that I thought was a very astute point, and I'm plugging our boy Joe Patrick again, but he mentioned this on there was a tactics video that went out on the Dirty South Soccer YouTube today addressing Atlanta United's 3-4-3. And one of the adjustments Joseph Martinez has to make in this formation, where the wingers are asked to cut inside and play a little more centrally, is he's not going to get crosses to him every two. In the old system, it was crosses constantly into the box from the wingers, from the wing backs, and he's great at getting on the end of crosses. But in this system where you have both wingers kind of cutting inside and running at him, he's not going to be able to receive crosses as often from wide positions. So he needs to adapt his game a little bit and check to those wingers and try to combine, or maybe look to just slide in behind with the through pass, because he's not going to feast off of crosses the way that he has in the last two seasons. And I think that's a big adjustment that needs to be made that'll make that front three a little bit more cohesive. And those three are very good players. I'm not worried about them. I think it's only a matter of time till they start clicking. But certainly Joseph, the wingers are adjusting to a new system. Joseph Martinez, no different.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully Frank DeBoer has something in mind that proves that he can adjust to what Ediano kind of presented.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to play exactly the same in leg 2, but as well as that worked. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to go all out like they did before, but maybe a more delayed press, maybe understanding that the press seemed to – it looked very much Red Bull-ish from 2017 and 2018 for the most part. That's what kind of upset me the most is that, again, you've got a team that's pressing you and you have no idea what to do.
And I don't know if Atlanta United, I think they were surprised. I think they were surprised that Ediano came out and pressed and were so aggressive and just took the match to them. And I think it just really threw them off. I mean, the pressure was a problem. The two up top, playing two up top was a problem as well. And Eric, you mentioned some of the things that Ediano did. And of course, we're going to touch on it, but we got to get our plug in. We're going to go deep into that on Talking Tactics, episode 3. Which we'll be recording tonight, and we'll kind of go deep into some of the things that Ediano did and what they might do for the second leg and how Atlanta United can adjust. But a big thing that we talked about in episode 2 of Talking Tactics that I thought it made a big difference was the two strikers up top. And I want to go back to that first goal, Eric, and we'll run through the video on Talking Tactics. So, yes, it's a huge mistake from Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez. No question about it. Header back. Ortiz right there to get on the end of it. But if you watch the build up to that play, he's tracking the other striker, Magana, in the middle. And Ortiz kind of sneaks in behind him, kind of from a position to his left. And Pirez in his head is used to playing against one striker. So once he sees Magana drop off, his mindset when the ball comes to him is there's nobody around me. And that's why he heads the ball back to Guzan, because he doesn't realize, and he should, of course, realize this, he doesn't realize that Ortiz, the second striker, is still up there with him. So there was absolutely it was a terrible error, but there was absolutely a tactical component. And I think the reason that he was so, if you look at him, it's not just a bad error. It's surprising how relaxed he is and how casual. It's not like he just mishit the header and didn't put enough pace on it. He just didn't think there was anyone behind him. And again, it was a direct result of Hernan Medford playing two up top and Pirez kind of falling asleep and just assuming there was just one up there with him.
It was two up top and then a very high midfielder.
And that's another thing we're going to get into. And yeah, so they were so aggressive, man. They were leaving the two strikers up. They were leaving one, maybe both wingers up all the time. And, I don't know enough about Ediano to say this is their MO, this is what they always do. But it worked perfectly against Atlanta United's back three, because if you leave two strikers up top, that's 3v2 in the back, which is already a tough situation. But if you leave the wingers up there and almost create a front four, then it's 4v3 against those three center backs, or 5v4 or 4v4 if the wing backs recover. So the system that Ediano played not just was a very aggressive and executed well, but the specific system exposed Frank de Boer's 3-4-3 formation very, very well. I can't say, because I don't know enough about Medford and Ediano, I can't say that they looked at what Atlanta United did in preseason and said, this is how we're going to attack the 3-4-3 or not. I can't say that, but certainly the tactic they used was perfect for matching up against Atlanta United's 3-4-3. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into in Talking Tactics and show you some specific examples with the video tonight. And hopefully that'll be out Wednesday morning.
Nick Lasso on the YouTube chat saying, thought most of the trouble was completed passes. Don't know the stat, but it has to be pretty bad. I think Russ will come off in the second leg. I think one of the things that this is one of those things where, you're playing a team that's in season versus a team that's not. I think more than anything, there's an opportunity for Frank de Boer to kind of instruct maybe specifically Barco on how exactly he wants him to press. Because, and you mentioned in your piece how kind of overloaded to one side Atlanta United got at times while they were pressing.
Yeah.
And Ediano, especially in that second goal, took advantage of it.
Yeah.
I mean, they found the wide spaces, and that eventually leads to a 4 on Guzan, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
I couldn't believe the timing, the pass, and that's the other thing we'll talk about. How much of a look, I heard turf and I was like, oh, great. Atlanta United plays on turf. And I had no expectation that it was the same kind of turf that Atlanta United plays on. But my gosh, to be that different, to essentially be a carpet on
there were
concrete,
a couple of bounces off the turf where it was just like, what? I mean, again,
I really don't want to use that as an excuse, because it's not like Atlanta United didn't have a moment to feel out the pitch a little bit, to pass a couple balls. They knew what they were getting into. They knew before the game started how bouncy that turf was.
like you said, Eric, though,
it's just surprising how much of advantage that was.
There are a bunch of unique components to traveling to play an opponent like this, whether it be playing in the small stadium, whether it be the travel can be difficult, not knowing, where you're going to stay in a hotel. You don't, it's a very difficult trip. Then, like you mentioned, Eric, the pitch being some sort of weird turf. I saw some of the weirdest bounces. It almost looked like a punter, like pinning the other team in the 5 when the ball lands on the 1 and bounces back.
Yeah.
There was some weird bounces like that. But all of those little unique, I think, aspects combined with the fact that Atlanta United aren't sharp, playing with a new system, playing with new critical attacking players, all of that creates the perfect storm for exactly what we saw. And like you said, Eric, it's not an excuse, but that stuff does contribute, I think, to the performance, because it's really hard to explain it. It's really hard to explain it without taking all those factors into account.
I just think about the second goal and how perfectly perfectly played that ball is. I forget who it is because
Ortiz with the assist. Yeah,
it's so perfectly played and so perfectly weighted that the only way you can do that, because I guarantee you that Barco and you saw them attempt this kind of passes to Joseph, but they just didn't come off.
Yeah,
and it was so perfectly weighted, so perfectly passed that the only thing you can attribute that to is how long they played on that surface and how used to it they are.
Mm-hmm, absolutely, in terms of the surface, and also, I mean, that goal. And if we just go, chronologically through the goals, it starts. And again, you plugged my piece on Dirty South Soccer, Eric, which I appreciate. So that second goal was pretty fascinating, and I went over it in depth. You can check it out on DirtySouthSoccer.com, but that goal is fascinating because Atlanta United's press is executed so poorly that literally when the pass comes to midfield from the right back position for Herediano to start the attack, literally 7 of Atlanta's players are pushed up in the press in the attacking third. 5 of them are on the wrong side of the field.
Yeah.
And when that ball that direct ball comes, what do you have? You have 3 center backs, 2 strikers, and the winger who stayed high. So it's a 3v3 situation. So when that initial ball comes, I think Miles Robinson got a piece of it or something like that. Ortiz gets it, and everyone's saying, why is no one pressuring Ortiz? Well, because it's a 3v3 situation. So you've got Perez? I think Robinson on Ortiz, and then Perez and Parkhurst can't come double team and apply pressure because they have to stay with their men. Yeah. And that was the reason Ortiz was able to just kind of hold the ball up and wait for the trailing run out of midfield. So once again, we see poor execution from Atlanta United and Herediano's tactics directly playing into an odd man break that creates an opportunity. And it could have been more goals throughout the 90 minutes from them doing exactly that.
Atlanta's lucky to still be in this thing at all.
Honestly. I agree. Even with Tito hitting the post at the end, I was like, man, I'll take it.
You had Joseph miss a what would be last year a perfect header to at least get one in. You had the one where the offside goal that I couldn't believe happened came down the way it did.
That's pretty hilarious.
I mean, it was a world of hurt for Atlanta United on Thursday, and I hate to have been the one to.
Well, it's your fault, right? Here we are. Look, everything we've said, just disregard it. It's Eric's fault. If you want to, break it down a little more.
A couple things before we move on to actually previewing the second leg. DeBoer selected Bello over Shea, and then he had some quotes about it afterwards, which I found unbelievably strange. And this is the first time, and it's one of my first impressions of Frank DeBoer that we've really gotten to see. At least I think most of us, our first impression of Frank DeBoer in the media, on Twitter, post-match. DeBoer said, this is from Doug Robertson from the AJC, DeBoer said he selected Bello over Shea because of the turf. Tried to say something about how Shea's height wasn't good with the turf. I didn't understand and couldn't get a follow-up asked. And I hope anyone asks him this week what that means.
When somebody,
I have no idea what that means.
When the beat writer from the local newspaper quotes you and said, I didn't understand what it meant. This is what he said. That was weird. Aside from the bizarre, did he have any other comments? I don't want to cut you off on Bello before we dive into that.
That's the only one that I don't hear defense to this.
That one jumped out that was, because.
Oh yeah, you mean comments from DeBoer? This is the most interesting. I really wanted to take this conversation a little bit towards Bello and Miles and how they did. But so this is how I wanted to introduce it because it's such a strange look. I didn't say Bello didn't deserve a chance to go out and prove what he's got.
Agree.
Game one, he absolutely deserves it given how he played last year, how good he is. But this is one of those things where experience trumps,
I guess, Eric,
talent.
You can give yourself a little pat on the back for something last week because I actually predicted George Bello was going to start. I was right, but I was also wrong because he had an absolute horror show over those 90 minutes. And you were saying, Eric, experience matters in these situations. So I'll give you a little tiny, teensy bit of credit.
I can't take credit for anything.
So I think you said one thing I agree with, Eric.
But no, does that make sense to you at all? Like I read it and I thought
the turf thing. No, I don't understand. Maybe someone in the YouTube chat can explain that to us because it was very, very bizarre. But I think that if you look at it, I agree with you, Eric. I completely support DeBoer's decision to start Bello. He's such a young starlet. I mean, and I think he does have the ability to play in these types of matches, but. My goodness, man. I mean, he had an absolute disaster over 90 minutes defensively, and he was very fortunate. Let's go back to that first goal, okay? That was LGP's fault. But that bizarre chest from George Bello, there's a long ball into the box. He chests it up, and then Perez has the poor header back to Guzan. The simple fact that he just let the ball hit his chest shows you where he is mentally, that he is very nervous, that's a sign of a nervous player, just letting the ball bounce off you without making a move to the ball. And then, to me, the second goal, obviously you have to mark better on a set piece. But he got turned around, fouls in a bad position. And then late in the match, he started to, I don't know if he was tired or rattled or what, but he started to basically just get beaten down that side over and over again. And there was a late chance. I can't remember who had it, where a guy, the winger for Herediano just ran right by him and received a through pass, and Guzan came out and made a good save. I mean, it was thing after thing with George Bello. He it was a mess. It really was. And look, he's a young kid. I want him to keep playing, not in the second leg. I want him to keep playing when MLS season rolls around, but I do question DeBoer not substituting him with Ambrose. Okay, so Shea's too tall. Mikey Ambrose was on the bench.
I just don't understand
he can play left back.
What does it have to do with anything? What does his height have to do with?
So not only is that a bizarre quote, though, you had a short left back on the bench too. So it's the whole thing is bizarre, and it became very clear to me over the last 10, 15 minutes you had to substitute Bello. You had to. And I understand Frank DeBoer wants to develop young players. I'm all for it. If this was an MLS match in April and he said, look, I'm going to leave him out there and make him learn the hard way, that's fine. But there's no room for that in a knockout competition in a round of 16 first leg. And that decision from DeBoer to not just not use his third substitute, but leave his 17-year-old player on who was clearly rattled, clearly fatigued, and clearly being targeted by the opposition.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing we haven't really brought up yet. How often they go down that right side?
It looked a lot like what Atlanta United did to Connor Lade in the playoffs, where the Red Bulls, never forget, Chris Armas blew it, never forget. When the Red Bulls came to Atlanta for the first leg and decided not to press, and Connor Lade just got picked on the whole night. It was very similar. And I want to see Bello play. I want him to develop. And the performance can't be totally surprising. But if you connect DeBoer to this, I don't criticize him for starting Bello, but clearly he had to come off sooner rather than later. And he left him on when he had a substitute available. And Atlanta United almost lost the tie altogether because there were a couple chances late where Bello was beaten.
Yeah, it would have been
I thought Perez was about to literally bite his head off on the one chance he conceded late.
I think after the foul, you got to take him off. After they score on the foul, you got to, considering how that night's gone, you got to take him off.
And you could see if you watch that game back, just watch George Bello. He's rattled. He doesn't know where to be all the time. And when you see a player like that, that's that young, you can tell he's rattled and nervous. And you just can't leave a player like that on in that situation. The lesson he learns is not worth going down 4-1, 5-1, yeah. And Atlanta United are very lucky not to be down that much going into leg 2.
You get the goal from Gressel, and it's unbelievable that that's the goal that goes in because it takes a crazy deflection. It's off of Gressel's left foot when he is not left-footed. And with all the other chances that Atlanta United did have,
funny that one goes
it's amazing that one goes in.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it went in because then you're looking at a much easier situation coming home. Before we forget, Miles Robinson, I thought had a really good night.
Me too. Me too.
I really don't know how to judge Remedi or Lorenowitz because I think they were under pressure 90% of that match. It's hard to judge what they really did right and what was a product of just having nowhere to go.
We've talked about this a lot, that switching the big adjustment in the 3-4-3 from previous systems is going to be 2 center mids as opposed to 3. And you could tell with those two guys, because it
was like, you go. No, you go.
Yeah,
no, you
absolutely.
go. I can't go. You go.
I mean, those two guys who we know can play together because they paired very effectively last year at holding mid, but they didn't have that third center mid, that third outlet. So it's an adjustment for them. And you could tell they weren't comfortable.
Sure, they had Pity and Barco come and drop him back a little bit, but they didn't have Almiron who they could give the ball to and just let him run the field.
Exactly. You need that third center mid. But Miles Robinson, I thought he was really good.
He showed you he might. That's a good place for him, right in the middle of the 3-man.
I think we might.
I think
there's a legitimate 4 options with Escobar, who's obviously injured, but you have Escobar, Parkhurst, Perez. I think Robinson 100% inserted himself into that conversation with the performance in Costa Rica. I thought he was great. I mean, the Perez made the mistake, but as we were discussing, the back 3 were getting run at all night. They were putting a lot of tough spots, and I thought he handled it really, really well.
Is there a chance that Frank de Boer moves to a 4-man back line just to appease the fact that he does have 4 really good defensive
going
players?
Into the second leg?
Not necessarily a second leg, but I'm saying when Franco Escobar returns and he's back into the conversation of the starting 11, is that something you consider, or
I think so. I think
is it just fight for the 3
especially because
the
3-4-3 and 4-3-3. If you start in a 3-4-3, it's hard to turn it into a 4-3-3. But if you start in a 4-3-3, you can turn into a 3-4-3. Yeah, so it is possible because that wouldn't be a huge change to the system. So I do think we'll see that at some point. But for leg 2, I think the big question, I think you see stay in the same shape. I think certainly I want to see Bello back when MLS season comes, but you've got to go with Shea over Bello. But other than that, I would pretty much keep it the same. Atlanta United played maybe too aggressively in Costa Rica. Maybe Nagby comes in the middle. Maybe, yeah.
Wait, for Lorenowitz or Remedi?
I would go Nagby for Lorenowitz because with 2 center mids, they've got to be able to cover a lot of ground, and that's just not really Jeff's game.
I agree with you. I think Nagby is more able to obviously connect the.
That's one you could see.
Connect the lines a little bit better than Lorenowitz or Remedi. So that's why I.
But
Lorenowitz, I think, is just the odd man out because he's. I'm not gonna say he's the worst of the 3, but he is older. He is a little slower. He can't connect the lines like a Nagby could do. And Remedi, I think. If you need someone yelling at the ref, I think Remedi's gonna be the guy.
Yeah, well, he was doing all leg 1, and you're right. I think you're right, Eric. And you have to be more aggressive in this match and take risk. You were already super aggressive in leg 1, and you got burned. But hey, you have no choice for leg 2 because you're down 2 goals. So one way to do that certainly is Nagby for Lorenowitz, just a player who can get out of trouble and kind of drive you forward. That's one thing I thought was missing from the 2 center mids was getting caught on the ball because Lorenowitz isn't a dribbler, so if you press him, he might lose it.
He turned over the ball for the second goal. Was the second goal?
No, it was there was a big chance for Jimmy Marin.
I'm sorry, that's right.
And you could see that was directly
fusing my house.
But I'm glad you're reading my piece because that was directly from it. But you could see that he was when he was getting pressed with only 1 center mid alongside him instead of 2 to support, he was struggling to kind of wiggle his way out of pressure. And that's Darlington Nagby's. I mean, that's right in his wheelhouse. So I think you've swayed me, Eric. I think Nagby for Lorenowitz, absolutely, because one, you want to take more chances getting forward, but also I just think if Herediano try to put pressure on those 2 center mids again, like the way they did in the first leg, he's a better option than a player like Jeff Lorenowitz.
The other reason I think Breck might be a better option for Bello is I feel like Breck is at least at this point, more of a threat, more willing to be a threat on the wing than Bello might be, especially in the second leg, considering how leg one went. If you put Bello in that same situation again, he might be much more tentative to get the field, knowing that he might cost his team, or with that in the back of his mind. I think Breck Shea can enter the equation with kind of a clean slate, if you will, a how can I help my team sort of attitude, and run up and down the field all day. Yeah.
And the way Atlanta United want to play is kind of predicated on what his game already is. You want to attack, you want to take risks, and certainly when you put him as a wing back, that's what he does. He gets forward, and then since he has experience in that position, he'll probably be able to recover a little bit better than George Bello did.
On top of that, the physicality going into the final third, I don't know that Bello has that yet. I don't know that as good as he is.
No, I don't.
As a youngster, I don't think I think he proved.
You can almost see just by looking at him.
He just doesn't have it yet. Breck Shea at least is an animal of a human specimen.
Yes,
so you can at least make that argument that he's going to be a little more physical. Maybe can do more in the final third, going into the final third, than maybe Bello can do physically in terms of handling any kind of roughness from Herediano. And getting the ball to the players that can score goals or help do it himself. I think one of the things that I want to see differently in leg two, I don't think Gressel or Bello. I'm not going to really put the blame on. I guess we could on Pitti and Barco, but I think that Atlanta didn't do a good enough job of spreading out that back line, and I think Herediano did a beautiful job of staying compact, knowing that that's where they wanted to go, and eliminating that from Atlanta United early on. I think Atlanta United's got to find a way. If they're going to play the same way they played in leg one, they got to find a way to spread that back line out, give Joseph a few more options, give Pitti and Barco a few more options going into the final third, attacking those players. That way, I mean, at one point it was Pitti versus 5 different guys on that back line, and yet he can't find anyone else to pass the ball to. You can't make anyone a threat in that position. He holds on to the ball perfectly, but he can't find anyone else. He can't do anything with 5 guys surrounding him. So they got to find a way to spread that back line.
I'd look for, I think one thing if you look at the system is that the wingers are supposed to pass to one another. They're supposed to cut inside and pass to one another. For instance, the Darlington Nagby opportunity in the second half, who does he receive that ball from? Tito Villalba. The Gressel goal, that starts with Barco flicking to Pitti, getting forward. He finds Gressel. So you're asking this system for the right and the left wingers to cut inside and link. So I think those two, and Barco was particularly guilty of this, Pitti a little bit too. When they cut inside and see that other player, whether it be Pitti cutting inside and seeing Barco or vice versa, you need to release the ball quickly. And that's how you move the ball quickly and spread out the back line. I think we saw a little bit too much holding the ball, slowing the play down. And a big part of that is, like I said, I just think it's from those 3 getting used to playing with each other. Obviously, Pitti is totally new to the equation. Barco was in and out of the lineup last year. And Joseph Martinez, as I mentioned earlier, feasted off of crosses last year from wide areas. And now he's going to be expected to link up and kind of get in behind a little bit more because of your wingers aren't playing in wide positions like they were last year.
Obviously not playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium for leg 2. It's one thing I tweeted after, I think, the second goal, maybe the first goal. But I tweeted that I really wish we could get this game.
Yeah, now I do. Oh, man.
Because as much as Herediano's field was a home field advantage for them, I can't say that Kennesaw State's going to do the same thing for Atlanta United. I think it's going to be loud, it's going to be rowdy, it's going to be all those things that we typically see. But if it's only limited to 10,000 people, it's not going to have that same effect that Mercedes-Benz Stadium has. And I honestly didn't think we'd need it.
You talk about unique environments going to Costa Rica. It works both ways. And I think Mercedes-Benz would have provided that unique environment much more so than Kennesaw State. I still think it'd be a great atmosphere, and you're still going to have the advantage of being at home. But certainly you'd feel more confident with, 45,000 strong indoors playing against a side that'll have to travel from Costa Rica.
I'm trying to think, is the field turf or grass?
That's a grass one.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just didn't for sure remember because I know a million teams play on that field, so I didn't know for sure if they kept up with all that stuff. Look, I can't say that's an advantage. I would say that the turf at Mercedes-Benz Stadium is also equally an advantage for Atlanta United because, again, they've been playing on it for so long. It's clearly different than what Herediano play on. Just by the way, you can see the ball bounces. And look, it's just Atlanta's got their work cut out for them. Thank God they got that one goal because now it's just a 2-0 win.
Yeah.
Gets they advance. If Herediano score 1, you got to get 3, and so forth.
What about from Herediano's point of view? Because I think the way they approach is going to be very interesting because, like we said, Lanier were aggressive in the first leg, so were Herediano, and they were much better. Will they look to exploit that again, Atlanta's aggressiveness, by getting forward quickly, or do you think they'll just sit back, soak up the pressure?
I think first 15 minutes, they need to. I think first 15 minutes you come out exactly like you did in the first leg. Take this all with a grain of salt because I suck at predictions. So, as we know. But if I'm the manager, I'm taking the first 15, 20 minutes and going as hard as I did in the first leg, see if I can't get one. That way it makes Atlanta United's job that much harder. As soon as you get that one, I'm done. I'll sit back. I'll park the bus. I'll set up lawn chairs in front of the goal line. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure Atlanta United doesn't score any more than 3 at that point. But because of how well it worked, because of how good Herediano looked against Atlanta United, and I don't expect things to change. I don't, at least not to start the match. I don't know why you would.
It's hard to argue against it, right?
I could see them absolutely parking the bus from the first whistle. I almost think that's a risk at this point for Herediano. I know that you can let one slip in, and that gives hope and confidence to Atlanta United. But it just takes one for this thing to get to extra time, and Atlanta United needing to score 3 or more.
Right. That's the other way to look at it as well. If Atlanta United are going to press us the same way they did in the first leg, if we score in this match, like you said, it's a big problem. Yeah. So why not stay aggressive in the way they were? It's not like they were throwing caution to the wind and throwing bodies forward. They were just simply leaving players high up the pitch because they knew Atlanta United were going to commit bodies forward. So it's as simple as that.
And look, we all recognize it could have been a lot worse than 3-1. I don't look at what I saw at last Thursday and think I need to change anything tactically. If anything, maybe not press so much, but tactically, formationally, you keep everything the same, and just ask your players maybe not to be so aggressive, but be aggressive enough to where you're dangerous. Maybe don't commit too many bodies forward, but don't be afraid to be just as dangerous. At least in the first 15, 20 minutes.
And basically, we'll plug talking tactics again, but basically you saw that other side of them in the last 10 minutes of the first leg. And what they did, Eric, you talk about being a little bit less aggressive. They still left the 2 strikers high, but they just brought the wingers deeper and did what we thought they were going to do was just defend with 2 lines of 4 and then leave the 2 strikers high. Like I just said, the 2 wide midfielders, one or both of them would stay up. But in the last 10 or 15 minutes, you saw how they would approach the match. And again, we will address this on Talking Tactics. If they come to Atlanta United and are a little less aggressive, are a little more defensive, they showed exactly what they are going to do, how they're going to do it in the last 10 minutes of the first leg. And it was as simple as the wingers coming back. So you have a flat midfield 4 in front of your defenders. And at times you'd see one of the strikers even drop into the midfield and create a midfield 5. So if Herediano look to play more defensively, a little less aggressive, it's going to be some variation of those systems.
Anything else you want to hit on when it comes to leg 2?
I think we're going to go through, man. I really do.
So that's your prediction.
Oh, no.
I'm going to suspend myself from predictions for the rest of the season.
Oh, man.
Because
the rest of the season?
Clearly can't handle it.
I can lift. I'll lift your suspension, okay? But for now, not now, but I might lift your suspension down the line.
I want to apologize to the Dread God. Sometime tomorrow, I'll be making some kind of sacrifice to the Dread God.
Okay, all right.
I don't know what I can do as penance for upsetting the Dread God. If there's any recommendations, if there's anything I can do, if there's something that the people want me to do that I can do that maybe will make amends for being so bombastic in my prediction or in my analysis or in my whatever, I'm happy to do it. Whatever it takes for Atlanta United.
Whatever it takes for
Atlanta United to go through, short of shaving my head, I'll do it.
And
tattooing.
and you won't eat poop because that was we tried to punish you after you chased Tata out.
I heard if it's yours, it's fine.
Oh my god!
And if we get 1 million followers,
right, that's true. If we get 1 million YouTubes No safer bet than that.
I do want to. Someone throws this up on Twitter on MOTS Podcast. They asked us to dedicate a segment to this exchange on Instagram between Michael Parkhurst and Miguel Almiron. We're not going to dedicate a whole segment to it, but I do think it's hilarious. Miguel, I guess, comments on Michael Parkhurst's Instagram saying, "Beautiful hair, Captain." I can't see the picture, so I'm not exactly sure what it looks like. Michael Parkhurst responds, 3 weeks in England, and now you speak English? To which Almiron responds, I only learned that.
I tell you, for an old dude, Parkhurst is good at social media.
Oh, he's good.
Yeah, he's good.
I'm waiting for the dad jokes. I'm waiting for the dad
that's great. I love it.
It's going to come out soon.
That's great.
I promise.
And Almiron said that's all I know is.
I only learned that. I'm sure he asked one of his buddies.
That's a bizarre response, which kind of shows I don't think he has learned that much English.
I will say it shows he's having a great time in England.
It shows that there's a lifelong bond between those guys on the team last year.
That comes from Paola Montalvo. Paola Montalvo.
I love it, Paolo. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that contribution.
That's pretty great.
Can't dedicate a whole segment because
that's really funny though.
Anything else you want to hit before we wrap it up on this?
No, like I said, I think Atlanta United are going to play well, and I think they're going to go through. And
you go to the match on Thursday?
I can't. I have to coach till 6:30, so I'm going to rush home and watch it on the telly. No, I don't. No.
I need a ticket.
Someone give Eric a ticket. He's good luck.
I missed the boat on the credential thing, so I need a ticket. They didn't send out the email. I never got an email.
Oh, really?
Normally they send out emails saying, "Hey, if you want to apply for credentials."
So sad Eric can't get his free press tickets.
Look, I'm willing to pay. I'm willing to be one of the people.
Sad? If you have a ticket, hit up Eric.
I don't know if
he's good luck.
I don't know if one of the people want to hang out with me right now, but I was genuinely nervous to do this podcast. We got a lot of tweets. Oh, sorry. I got a lot of tweets.
It's amazing.
Damn it, Eric.
It's amazing.
I blame Eric. Eric, you effed with the dread god. Why?
We have smart listeners. Everyone knew who was to blame. So I love it. We love you guys.
I'm curious which way the listenership trends after this podcast.
I think
considering what happened last week.
Any pub is good pub.
I'm
right?
surprised I haven't heard any crap from any other podcasts. I was sure I was going to hear it. I haven't heard Home Before Dark this week. I don't know if it's come out. But listen to Talking Around Here. Didn't hear anything about that. I haven't listened to Unrelegated.
Unreal didn't go after you, but that's probably because they know they know we listen to them too, and we'll snap back with a few of their takes.
I deserve it all. All right. Where can they find you on social media?
You can find me at JoshB914 on Twitter. Remember, Talking Tactics. We're going to record it tonight. It'll be out Wednesday morning, and it'll be basically covering a little bit of Leg 1, a little bit of Leg 2. What Herediano did and how Atlanta United can handle what they did in Leg 1 a little bit better coming up Thursday night. So.
I am at Eric G. Quintana if you want to follow me or unfollow me. You can find the podcast on social media or on Twitter at MOTS Podcast. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Get a little more lively. I met some Atlanta United fans in Chattanooga. In Nashville.
You told that's pretty awesome.
Ran into some fans who saw my Atlanta United hat. Very excited to see me and recognize us from the podcast.
No way.
Very, very cool. Wow. Well, I mean, I told them, hey, Mouse is out. That's
Oh, they knew the podcast. Yeah.
So very cool. They didn't know. I don't think they're
very few people have actually recognized me before, but usually when they learn of the podcast, like, oh yeah,
well, you have a very
I know that crap.
Face.
Well, apparently, oh my god. I actually disagree with that. I think I have strange hair and usually a bottle of whiskey in my hand in the gulch. I don't think you could miss me.
I kid. All right. If you want to donate to the podcast, patreon.com/MOTS podcast goes to supporting the podcast, supporting the vlogging that we're doing with all the Talking Tactics that we're doing with Josh and myself. Sam Franco should have some interviews coming out later this week. We will keep you posted as soon as we have them. And join us for the radio show tomorrow. Well, if you're listening to this, it's probably going to be that same day. But radio show, 12:30 a.m. on the Atlanta Sports X, also on 106.3 FM, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. We are happy to take your calls, happy to talk anything you're into at the moment, anything related to Atlanta United on that radio show.
Yeah. Only soccer specific radio show in Atlanta.
Only soccer specific radio show in Atlanta.
Or something.
Which
like
someone kind of challenged me on. They're like, oh, it's only on the Sports X. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't realize us beggars could really be choosers at this point.
It's something.
Name one other soccer show on the radio. You've been asking for it for a long time. You have it.
I don't want to go.
And now you don't want to go.
We don't want to dive too deep.
All right. The person who called me out, they know. They know who they are.
Eric is mad.
I didn't realize beggars could be choosers.
He got really angry, didn't he?
By the way, we have been on 680.
Yeah, that's true. We've done live broadcasts from various locations.
Just saying. Only soccer-specific radio show in Atlanta right now.
Oh, boy.
But, all right. Boy. That'll do it for us. We're going to be talking tactics. Join us, catch Talking Tactics when it comes out tomorrow night, Thursday morning. And join us for the radio show on Wednesday, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Until next time. See you later, Atlanta.
Thanks, y'all. Good night. Thank you. Love y'all. Talking Tactics tomorrow.
I love you. I love you.